The purpose of Chapter 3 is to help you learn how to come up with a research topic, refine it, and get ready to write your research proposal, which is discussed in Chapter 4. Research ideas and research problems originate from many sources. The authors discuss 4 of these sources in the text: everyday life, practical issues, past research, and theory. Regardless of the source of your idea, a key point is you must develop a questioning and inquisitive approach to life when you are trying to come up with a research idea. Everyday life is one common source of research ideas. Based on a questioning and inquisitive approach, you can draw from your experiences and come up with many research topics. For example, think about what educational techniques or practices you believe work well or do not work well. Would you be interested in doing a research study on one or more of those techniques or practices? Practical issues can be a source of research ideas. What are some current problems facing education? For example, problems facing administrators, teachers, students, or parents. What research topics do you think can address some of these current problems? Past research can also be an excellent source of research ideas. In my opinion, past research is probably the most important source of research ideas. That's because a great deal of educational research has already been conducted on a multitude of topics, and, importantly, research usually generates more questions than it answers. This is also the best way to come up with a specific idea that will fit into and extend on the research literature. For students planning on writing a thesis or dissertation, the use of past research is extremely helpful. And remember to not just look at the variables and the results, but also carefully examine how they conducted the study. That is, examine the study's methods. And finally, theory, that is, explanations of phenomena, can be a source of research ideas. Can you summarize and integrate a set of past studies into a theory? Are there any theoretical predictions needing empirical testing? Do you have any theories that you believe have merit? If there is little or no theory in an area of interest to you, then think about collecting data to help you generate a theory using the grounded theory technique. When you read a research article, it will be helpful for you to think about the ideas shown in Table 3.1. The point of this section is that empirical research, that is research that is based on the collection of observable data, cannot provide answers to ultimate or metaphysical or ethical questions. If a question is asking which value is true or correct, empirical research can't offer the solution. For example, the following questions are not answerable using empirical research. Is school prayer good? Should homosexuals be allowed to legally marry? Should the teaching of Christianity and no other religion be provided in public schools? These are moral and legal issues which cannot be directly addressed or resolved by empirical research in the social or behavioral sciences. John Dewey made a point that empirical research can provide answers about how to get to valued endpoints. But he took the valued endpoints for granted. For example, democracy, equality, education for all. So do not expect to conduct an empirical research study that will show whether school prayer should be adopted. After you have identified your research idea and identified a general problem that sounds interesting to you, the next step is to become familiar with the published information on your topic. Conducting a literature review will help you to see if your topic has already been researched, help you to see how you might need to revise your own research idea, and show methodological techniques and problems specific to your research problem that will help you in designing a study. More importantly, after conducting a thorough literature review, your specific research questions and hypotheses will become clearer to you. A literature review can take a different form in qualitative and quantitative research. In quantitative research, the researcher directly builds on past research. Therefore, review of prior research must be done before conducting the study. In quantitative research, the literature review will help you to see if your research problem has already been done, assist in forming research questions, provide information on study design, show you data collection instruments that have been used, and show theoretical and methodological issues that have arisen in past studies. In qualitative research, which often means exploratory research, little prior literature may be available. Further, too much review may make a researcher myopic. Literature is especially important during the later stages, for example, during interpreting the results and the discussion of exploratory research. Still, for much qualitative research, the authors recommend that a literature review is conducted to see what has been done and to provide sensitizing concepts. Then, when the data are collected, the researcher can use strategies discussed in Chapter 10 to minimize the researcher's biases. There are two basic schools of thought on using literature reviews in qualitative studies. Some researchers argue a complete literature review should be done prior to conducting the study because you can determine if your particular question has already been answered in another study, because the literature review will provide additional concepts and theories to add in to your design, because other studies may suggest a more refined and/or effective approach, and finally, because previous research can provide information about situations and populations needing studying. Other researchers argue against performing literature reviews for qualitative studies because you may be increasing biases by cultivating preconceived notions about what you may find. Further, avoiding reading about existing studies permits the use of a fully exploratory approach that capitalizes on the emergent nature of this type of inquiry. The authors, however, recommend always doing some sort of literature review because they think the overall advantages will outweigh potential disadvantages. There are several major sources of information for you to use when conducting a literature review. Books are a good starting point. It gives you an overview and a summary of relevant research and theory. Journals are another excellent source. Journals provide more recent information than books and provide full-length empirical research articles for you to carefully examine. Computer databases are also excellent sources for locating information. Probably the most important computer database in education is ERIC. Other important databases are PsycInfo or PsycLit, Sociophile, and Sociological Abstracts for sociological research, and dissertation abstracts for summaries of doctoral dissertations in education and related fields. The authors strongly recommend that you do not limit your search to a single computer database. Also, they recommend you do not search only for full-text articles, because this will eliminate most of the best published research. In this section, the authors include some practical material on conducting the literature search. Table 3.2 shows how to search ERIC. You should access ERIC through your library to get the full version. But remember, do not limit your searching to just ERIC. Use multiple databases. In Table 3.4, the authors explain how to evaluate the quality of Internet resources. It is important for you to understand that the quality of material on the Internet varies widely, and it must be evaluated prior to use. Using the public Internet has obviously become extremely important. Table 3.3 lists some useful subject directories, search engines, and meta-search engines. Before deciding whether to carry out your research project, you must decide whether it would be feasible to conduct. You should do this as early as possible so you don't waste your time. This means you must design a research study that can be carried out given your available resources such as time, money, access to people, and other things. For example, interviewing all children with ADHD in your state probably would not be feasible for a single research study. However, interviewing a set of children with ADHD at your school would be more feasible. Further, part of determining feasibility involves ensuring that the study can be carried out ethically. The Instructional Review Board, or IRB, process will help you with this decision. So far we have discussed how to come up with your research topic and how to find the needed information. As seen in Figure 3.1, after you get to your topic, you need to move to determining your research problem, your statement of the purpose of your study, your statement of the research questions, and if you're conducting a quantitative study, you will also need to state your hypotheses. Note that movement from the top to the bottom of Figure 3.1 involves a movement from the general to the specific. For example, a hypothesis is much more specific than a research topic. Also note that as you move from the top to the bottom, you will need to conduct your literature review so that you can determine what specific research questions and/or hypotheses need to be addressed. In fact, it is usually helpful when conducting basic or applied research to start your literature review right at the beginning of the process shown in Figure 3.1. The research problem is the educational issue or problem within your broad topic area. Thus, you must start with your topic and then try to identify one or more research problems you believe need to be solved in that topic area. In quantitative research, research problems tend to emphasize the need to explain, predict, or describe something. In qualitative research, research problems tend to focus on exploring a process, an event, or a phenomenon. And of course, mixed research is based on both, or a mixture, of quantitative and qualitative studies. Remember, your research purpose follows from the problem you select, and it is your statement of your intent or objective for your research study. It is important to include this statement in your proposal and final report because it helps orient your reader to your study. In quantitative research, the purpose identifies the specific type of relationship being investigated using a specific set of variables. The stated relationship may be descriptive, causal, or predictive in nature. Further, a quantitative purpose statement will identify the variables you will examine. In qualitative research, the purpose focuses on exploring or understanding a phenomenon. Qualitative purpose statements may convey a sense of the emerging design, may state the central idea of your study, may indicate the methods you'll use to collect data, or it may describe the research site. In mixed research, the purpose might focus on conducting a study that explores, generates, and tests or confirms relationships or ideas. After you have completed your literature review and have digested the literature, you will need to make an exact statement of the specific research questions you want to pursue. This practice will help ensure you have a good grasp of what you want to do. It will enable you to communicate your idea to others, and it will help guide the research process. For example, it'll help guide what variables will be examined and which methods will be needed. A good literature review will logically end with your specific research questions. In quantitative research, a research question typically asks about a relationship that may exist between or among two or more variables. It should identify the variables being investigated and specify the type of relationship, that is, descriptive, predictive, or causal, to be investigated. For example, what effect does playing football have on students' overall grade point average during the football season? The authors include scripts for writing quantitative research questions in Table 3.5, and they can be very helpful if this is your first time writing a research proposal. In qualitative research, a research question asks about the specific process, issue, or phenomenon to be explored or described. For example, what are the social and cultural characteristics of a highly successful school where students and teachers get along well and students work hard and achieve highly? Or, how does the social context of a school influence pre-service teachers' beliefs about teaching? Or another example, or what is the experience of a teacher being a student like? In mixed research, research questions might ask about relationships, process, and contextual interactions that might exist, such as what works for whom in different contexts. If you are conducting a quantitative research study, you will typically state your specific hypotheses that you have developed from your literature review. A hypothesis is the researcher's prediction of the relationship that exists among the variables being investigated. If you wrote a research question, the hypothesis will be your tentative answer to your question. For the quantitative research question stated earlier, that is, what effect does playing football have on students' overall grade point average during the football season? The related hypothesis might go like this. Students who play football during the football season will experience a decrease in their GPAs as compared to students not playing football. Also, your hypothesis must be logically connected to your research question, and it must be possible to empirically support or refute. Unlike in quantitative research, where hypotheses are stated before collecting the data, the hypotheses in qualitative research are often generated as the data are collected and as the researcher gains insight into what is being studied. In mixed research studies, you might formally state a hypothesis to be tested via the quantitative and possibly the qualitative part of the mixed study. Hypotheses can sometimes be generated during a mixed study and then followed with testing in the same overall research study. Frequently, there will be no need to conduct an empirical research study because the necessary research will already have been done. In other words, many times, only a literature review will be needed to answer your questions. The authors have provided a checklist for evaluating research studies in tables 3.6, 3.7, and 3.8 of your text. These will help you evaluate each study you review. Don't forget, never place too much confidence in a single research study. That is, you should place much more confidence in a research finding that has been replicated, that is shown in many different studies. Because of the importance of viewing the full set of studies on an issue and the built-in benefit of replication when this is done, you can see why the authors recommend that you pay special attention to meta-analyses when you find them in your literature searches. A meta-analysis is a quantitative technique for summarizing the results of multiple studies on a specific topic. It will tell you if a variable consistently has been shown to have an effect, as well as the average size of any effect. This presentation was built using the original PowerPoint presentation and lecture notes provided by authors Johnson and Christensen on the instructor and student websites which accompany the 4th edition of Educational Research, Quantitative, Qualitative, and Mixed Approaches. I have modified the slide content and script to match our needs, but the original content is copyrighted by Sage Publications.